Since this is Thanksgiving week, it's good to remember to practice gratitude, especially if we have any low energy during the upcoming holidays. It's really helpful to lift our energy just a little bit. And if you do lots of different practices that lift you a little bit, the effect is a lot of lifting. So the most important thing is do not give up on your spiritual practices when you're at your lowest. That is the worst time to give up on all your practices. But that's also the time when you most likely will forget about your practices, which is why we practice preventatively before we get into that monkey space, right? So, because then it'll be easier to remember our practices if we've been practicing already before we get into that dark space. So, over the years, I've learned all kinds of little things to do, and if you do lots of little things, the effect is really wonderful and uplifting. And tonight I want to talk a little bit about the teachings, the Buddha's teachings on love, compassion, joy, and equanimity. These are the 4 qualities of the heart, of the enlightened heart. And so, whatever you're experiencing and going through in life, bring your mindfulness back to these qualities and see how you are doing in embodying and expressing these qualities of the enlightened heart. And if you can just keep coming back to this heart of love, compassion, joy, and equanimity, it will very much help you in your practice of mindfulness, especially of mindfulness of emotions and mindfulness of mental states. So, loving kindness. In the Sanskrit language, that is Maitri. And in the Pali language, which is a dialect, it is pronounced metta. So some of you may have heard of metta or Maitri. In fact, the next Buddha to come, it is said, is named Maitreya, the Buddha of loving kindness and friendliness and friendship and love. And so that's why our teacher Thich Nhat Hanh thinks that it might be possible that the next Buddha is not just one person, but a movement of people who know how to practice loving kindness. And that makes sense because the word Maitri, metta, comes from a root word which also means friendship. And you can't have friendship if you only have one person. Friendship takes at least 2. And so that's why Thich Nhat Hanh thinks, well, maybe it's a clue that the next Buddha isn't just one person, but at least 2, at least 3, 4, 5, 10, 100, 1,000, 1 million people learning how to practice friendship with each other and loving kindness with each other. I like that. Because then we're not waiting for someone else to save us.
That's right.
We are the ones who are responsible to save ourselves. Together. Not alone, but together. And so it's up to us to be the next Buddha. It's up to us to be Maitreya. It's up to us to be friendship and loving kindness. So what happens when love meets different conditions? When love meets suffering, love automatically expresses as compassion. And when love meets someone fully blessed by some joy or some good or some fortune, then love then manifests as joy, a sort of a sympathetic joy, a joy with their joy, you see. And that is why we have these qualities of love, compassion, and sympathetic joy. They are called Maitri, Karuna, and Mudita, or Metta, Karuna, and Mudita. It's really all just love. But it's love in its innocent, pure form, and then it's love in its form when it meets suffering, and it's love in its form when it meets blessing. But it's all love. Now, what is about this fourth quality of the enlightened heart? Equanimity. Well, the way it's related is that it's sort of the foundation and the strength that allows love to be love without quickly dissipating into other similar qualities but that aren't quite love. Like a quality that's very similar to love is lust, or craving, or desire, or grasping, or obsessive compulsive holding on. Another quality similar to love but not quite love is codependency, right? And then, of course, with compassion, sometimes it's just pity rather than true compassion. A kind of pity that just looks down on people that you're helping. But that's not true compassion. It's similar, but it's not quite compassion. And the same with joy. Instead of just being sympathetic joy in others' blessings, you might turn into sort of a crazy, frenetic kind of a joy that's kind of goes a little bit hyper and manic, you know. It's like joy, but it's not quite the kind of joy that we're talking about here. But equanimity allows all these other qualities of love, in its form of loving kindness, compassion, and sympathetic joy, to be fully what they are without turning into other things. This equanimity is the space for love. It's the spaciousness that allows love. And it's also a wisdom that knows that everyone has their own path, and everyone is dealing with the effects of their own karma, and everyone has their own lessons they're learning, and so do I. And so it allows things to be. It allows spaciousness. It allows respectfulness. Even if someone is doing something that just drives us crazy and think we know it's not really the best way, but that's their choice. I cannot control everything and everyone. And when I try to do that, guess what? I suffer.
That's right.
So, if you want to have true happiness, amen, sister. If you want true happiness, practice equanimity amidst all of your activities of love, compassion, and joy. You see, when we love, we want to give, and we want the best for others. But if our love doesn't have the balancing quality of equanimity, then it's so easy to fall into getting completely overwhelmed by the other person's needs, instead of just giving from an overflow of your own heart, an overflow that starts from within. You cannot truly love others without poison mixed in with it if you do not first love yourself. And you can't even love yourself fully until you realize and accept the love from the universe for you that's always there. So, really, even though in traditional loving-kindness meditation, we first practice with sending love to ourselves, and then when we feel strong in that feeling of love for ourselves, then we can move on to sending that feeling of love to someone easy to love, and then someone neutral, and then someone a little difficult, and then someone a little more difficult, and eventually being able to send love to everyone equally in all the universe. And by the time you reach that level of love, you are a Buddha. Because a Buddha is just simply someone who loves every single being in the universe without discrimination. Sounds like certain people we know, right? Like Jesus and others in history. And Buddha, too. So, even though traditionally we start with ourselves, loving ourselves, because self-love must be pure and full before we can give it to others without tainting that love. Because when it's not full in ourselves and we attempt to love, there is true love, but it's mixed with strings. It's mixed sometimes with resentment. Giving, and then when not receiving the return of that giving, it's like there's resentment. And so it's a mixed bag in our loving, which is why we practice. That's why it's called a practice, because we're practicing. But the insight that I received, and the insight others are receiving too, is that there's a step even before loving yourself, and that is gratefully receiving the love that's for you from others, and of course ultimately from the source of all, whether you name that God or Buddha nature or the universal spirit of life. To know that you are loved by the source of all through the many manifestations in this world, such as the sunshine and the wind and the rain and the earth and the flowers and our loved ones, those who cared for us as we grew up, those who taught us the path of enlightenment. When we really, really, really deeply receive and know that we are so loved, when we really, really, really know that we are the result of the givingness of billions of years of evolution, and that the universe spent billions and billions and billions of years to produce you. Mm-hmm. That is love. Mm-hmm. So the next time you have a thought of hating your life or wanting to end your life or just not feeling good about your life, remember how much time and energy the universe spent to produce you. Mm. And then you'll know how much you are loved. And when you know that love, then it's so much easier to love yourself. And when you love yourself, it becomes so much easier to give that love to those, first, that it's easy to love, like a benefactor, a teacher, perhaps, and then someone maybe at the grocery store you see every week. You don't know them that well, but you start giving love to them with the same intensity that you feel from the universe, that you give to yourself and that you give to your loved ones, the same intensity, and then the same intensity eventually of love to those who are difficult to love in your life. And eventually, when you're a fully matured Buddha, your love will be so intense that you love all beings everywhere in the entire cosmos equally, without discrimination, fully, with a heart of true love, compassion, and joy. Now, as we practice these things, sometimes there are certain qualities that, like I said earlier, that are a little bit close to, but not quite, love, compassion, joy, and equanimity. I've already mentioned that with loving kindness, there's the what would you call it? Pseudo form of that loving kindness, which would be kind of a more of a kind of liking to want to have, or you basically you give kindness and friendship to someone because there's something you want from them. But the most enlightened aspect of this loving kindness is to give without expecting any return. And the reason why you can actually do that in this enlightened way of love is because you already know that the universe gives you everything you need. That's why when you can love from that space, it's easier to just love and give and not expect anything in return. But no one's there yet. I'm not there yet. So keep practicing. And don't judge yourself. Just notice, today I gave love and it was 90% true love and not 10%, I want something back, honey. Give me some lovin's. All right. And then with compassion, make sure, is it true compassion, or is it something where you want to just show your superiority? Or you just, want to pity someone and look down on them, even though they're giving to them and helping them. Be very careful. And also be careful that love and compassion don't become just a sappy sentimentality. Many times people sincerely give, but there's not the quality of wisdom with the giving. And so sometimes we can mess things up more, right? Even though we sincerely want to help. But love without wisdom, it's not always a pretty picture. In traditional Buddhist art work, sometimes they create statues with these bodhisattvas with 1,000 arms. And that's supposed to represent compassionate helping of others, like helping people in many different ways. But if you look closer, in each hand there's an eye. And the eye represents wisdom and understanding, and the knowledge of how to actually help. So for us as practitioners, we must always make sure that wisdom goes along with compassion. They need to be balanced. Otherwise, compassion messes things up sometimes more when there's not wisdom. And then joy, by the way, the opposite of joy would be jealousy. So if the person sitting right next to you, if they were to win $1 million in the lottery tomorrow, notice what your first reaction is. Is it, woohoo! I'm so happy for you. Or is it, why couldn't it have been me that won that lottery? As you smiling jealously. So, and this, again, it's not about judging yourself, it's just noticing where you're at. 90% of me had full joy in their joy, and there was 10% that was kind of jealous, feeling jealous, right? So just notice. And notice, but here's the neat thing about mindfulness. Notice what it's like next year after another year of practice. And notice what it's like 10 years from now after 10 years of mindfulness practice. You will see a big difference, and it will bring a smile to your face. I see a difference in my life, and I think you probably do too. And so that is the witness to the power and the truth of this practice. I don't need someone preaching to me, telling me that this is true and good. The witness comes from the experience itself, from the practice itself. So you don't have to preach to everybody about meditation and mindfulness, spirituality, and all of that. Just live it, be it, radiate it, and you are the witness itself. You are the witness just by radiating and being it. That's how we spread the good news. Just be the light. You don't even have to say too much. But when the time is appropriate, then say something, of course. There's 2 books by one of my favorite Zen masters. The first book is A Return to Silence. But the second book is You Have to Say Something. These are 2 aspects of our practice. First, come back to the truth that is found in the silence of meditation. And once you find it, then the words will come naturally when in appropriate circumstances. Last but not least, let me share equanimity. Sometimes a quality that's a pseudo quality that's like equanimity but not quite equanimity is indifference and coldness and sometimes even judgment. Because it does partly stem from the wisdom that, well, everyone's on their journey, everyone has their own karma, they're just they're just, eating the fruit of their past actions in this present moment. And yes, there is truth to that. But here's another spin on it. Perhaps you have the karma of seeing that person suffering, and now in this moment you have the choice of responding in compassion or not. And depending on your response, you're creating the bad karma now, right? Or the good karma. So we can't just say, well, those people that were born in third world countries that are starving to death, that's just their karma. In the moment you see that they are suffering and are aware of it, it is your dharma to act in compassion. And if you do not, then you are creating the negative karma. It has nothing, and don't even think about their karma. Be mindful of your own actions and consequences of actions. And besides, you don't know. Some beings come into very difficult circumstances in this life, not because they had bad karma in the past life, but because they are very highly evolved beings that choose to go into situations to bring light to those dark situations. So you cannot judge.
That's right.
You cannot judge. So those people, and I've met some of them, it's like, well, it's their bad karma, whatever. No, you don't know that. You have no right or understanding to say such things. So your only practice is, when seeing suffering, loving kindness responds as compassion, not as indifference. When seeing blessing, love's response is joy, not jealousy. And holding it all in spaciousness and wisdom is the peace of equanimity, so that we don't get overwhelmed by all of the suffering and blessings, the ups and downs of life, but that we can stay centered through all the different various experiences of life. And that is the greatest gift that we can give to the world. When we can be centered and calm and strong and peaceful in the midst of all the chaos of the planet, that is our greatest gift. And let me tell you, some big shiftings and changes are coming up. Some big chaos is about to start. And we have the gift, the opportunity to be a gift in the midst of the chaos, to be a beacon of light, a beacon of oasis, calm and peace and centeredness and inner strength for all the people in the world who may be drowning in all of their own personal and planetary chaos. But remember, like I said earlier, it's more about preventative medicine. Don't wait till everything's all crazy. Start now and practice. Start now and support the center. Start now and give and be community. Be Maitreya. Be the Buddha of love and friendship. Now. Don't wait. Now is the time. And it starts with gratitude. To receive, mindfully appreciating all that is so positive and good in our life now. Not putting happiness off to the future. Not putting happiness off to just a goal, but creating the habit of finding happiness now. 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 And guess what? If you can be happy now, you can be happy later too. But if you cannot create the habit of being happy now, even in the future, when you realize certain goals, you still won't be happy. Because the part of you is habituated to keep pushing happiness to the future. And even though you might realize your goals, you still can't be happy. Because there's this part of you that's always pushing it farther and farther away, just out of reach. So don't do that. Find happiness now, be that happiness, and help other people find that too. So that is the practice of love, compassion, joy, and equanimity, starting with the practice of gratitude. See, gratitude and mindfulness are not separate. They are actually just two sides of the same reality. Gratitude always leads to more mindfulness. And mindfulness always leads to gratitude. Amitabha.
Amitabha.